Okay, so imagine for a second you're house hunting. You want the most expensive structure ever built by humans. I mean, we're talking a price tag of $150 billion.
Which is, just to put that in perspective, that's roughly the GDP of a small country. Or like 30 nuclear aircraft carriers.
Right, so you pay the bill, you move in. But here's the catch. This house, it's in a neighborhood where the environment is actively trying to kill you. And I don't mean bad weather. I mean the laws of physics are trying to dismantle your body every single second.
It really is the ultimate extreme home. We are, of course, talking about the International Space Station, the ISS, and you are right about the neighborhood. It's 250 miles up, orbiting in a total vacuum.
And it's not just floating there. It is hurtling through that void at 17,500 miles per hour. That's 5 miles a second.
5 miles a second. If you blink, you have literally missed an entire state down below.
Exactly. And the stakes couldn't be higher. In that environment, I mean, the human body is just so fragile. You hear about the rule of threes for survival, right?
3 minutes without air, 3 days without water.
Yeah, but in space, it's all accelerated. You last about 3 minutes without air, maybe 3 days without water. But really, without the tech we're going to talk about today, you wouldn't even make it past that 3-minute mark.
That is the core of it. We see the ISS as this, amazing lab where astronauts float around and do science. But before it's a lab, it is a survival machine.
That's what really blew my mind going through these sources. Engineers had to figure out how to replicate every single life-sustaining function of Earth.
Gravity, air, water, temperature.
All of it.
Yeah.
And stuff it inside what is basically a series of airtight tunnels.
The tiny can concept. It's the perfect metaphor. It's a tiny little life raft in a lethal ocean. And the engineering to make that happen is just, it's unprecedented.
So today we're going on a deep dive into the guts of this $150 billion Lego set. We're going to unpack how they literally make air out of water.
How they turned yesterday's coffee
into tomorrow's coffee. And how they keep the whole thing from either freezing solid or burning up.
And what I find so compelling is how this thing even came to be.
Yeah.
Because you can't just, build a 460-ton building on Earth and launch it.
Right. Gravity kind of says no to that. You have to build it piece by piece in orbit. And this is where the history gets fascinating. The sources really highlight that the ISS wasn't just an engineering feat, it was a political miracle.
Totally. You go from the Cold War space race to this intense collaboration. In the late 90s, not long after the Soviet Union fell, you had these former enemies working together. The first two modules were Zarya, which is Russian for sunrise, and then Unity, which was American.
And the way they met up sounds like something out of a movie. You had Zarya already up there, orbiting. Then the U.S. launches the shuttle Endeavour with Unity in the back, and it's literally chasing Zarya down at 17,000 miles an hour.
It's this high-speed orbital dance. But, and this is a big but, this is where the engineering reality crashed right into the political dream. You have to remember, these modules were built by different superpowers.
With completely different blueprints, different standards.
Different everything.
Yeah.
Which led to this problem that made me laugh out loud when I read about it.
It's a square peg in a round hole problem.
Quite literally. The Russian docking hatches were round. The American hatches were square. They physically could not connect.
No way. I mean, can you imagine that meeting? Hey, did anyone check the door shape? You have billions of dollars of hardware up there and the doors don't match. How did they fix that?
They built an adapter. It's called the Pressurized Mating Adapter, or PMA. Think of it as like an L-shaped connector block.
So it's a dongle. They built a space dongle.
A multi-million-dollar space dongle, yeah. It was this ingenious Lego piece that allowed the square American hatch to seal perfectly with the round Russian one.
I love that. It's such a human solution. And once that thing clicked into place, the ISS was officially born.
And from those two pieces, it just grew and grew. Nearly 40 missions added modules from Europe, Japan, Canada. And today, I mean, the thing dwarfs Times Square. It's the size of a football field.
460 tons. That's like 300 cars floating in formation. But as it got bigger, the problems got more complex. And the biggest one, well, it has to be breathing. The sources say an adult breathes something like 4,000 gallons of air a day.
Right. And you can't just crack a window for a fresh breeze.
Exactly. And launching all that air from Earth, I mean, it costs something like $10,000 to send a single pound of anything into orbit.
You'd go bankrupt in a week. So the station has to make its own air. And this is where we get into some really, really clever chemistry.
Okay, so deep inside the station, there's a machine about the size of a trash can.
Yeah, totally unassuming. But it's the heart of the whole system. It uses a process called electrolysis.
Electrolysis. Okay, I remember this from high school chemistry. You run electricity through water, H2O.
And it splits the molecule. You get hydrogen and you get oxygen. Simple enough on Earth, right? You put electrodes in water, turn on a battery, and bubbles rise to the top. You just collect the oxygen.
Ah, but you said the key phrase, rise to the top.
That needs gravity. On Earth, gas bubbles are lighter than water, so they float up. In orbit, there's no up. There's no buoyancy.
So the bubbles just hang out.
They just sit there, clinging to the electrodes. You end up with this frothy, useless mess of foam. If you can't separate the oxygen from the water, you can't breathe it.
That's a nightmare. So you have the oxygen, it's right there, but it's trapped. How do you solve the lazy bubble problem?
You fake gravity. The machine uses a centrifuge. It spins the whole mixture at high speed.
Like a salad spinner.
Exactly like a salad spinner. The spinning forces the denser liquid to the outside, and the lighter gas gets trapped in the middle.
So they literally spin the air out of the water.
Effectively, yeah. They suck the pure oxygen out of the center for the crew. It makes about 5 to 20 pounds a day, and they just vent the leftover hydrogen into space.
That is just incredible. It's basically a washing machine that makes air. Which brings us to the other half of that equation, water. Water is heavy. If air is expensive to ship, water's just as bad.
Well, it's worse. It's denser. That's why the goal on the ISS is 90 to 95% recycling efficiency. They treat water like gold. They collect humidity from the air.
Which is mostly sweat and breath from the astronauts exercising.
Right, and they condense that back into liquid. Well, they collect other fluids too.
We have to talk about it, the urine.
We have to. The urine processing assembly. The sources get pretty detailed here. First off, just peeing in space isn't simple. Again, no gravity.
So you can't just, aim for a bowl.
Right. They use a hose with a fan on it that creates suction. But collecting it is just the beginning. The real engineering problem is that raw urine is chemically unstable.
Unstable how? Like it explodes.
Not explode, but it turns rancid fast. Bacteria love it, and it creates solids that would clog up the whole system. So the moment it's collected, the machine injects it with these harsh chemicals to stabilize it. The sources describe the result as a dark fluid.
That sounds absolutely appetizing.
It's definitely not drinkable yet. They have to distill it. And just like with the oxygen, they use a spinning distillation process to boil off pure water vapor, leaving all the toxic stuff behind.
And this is where we get the famous astronaut phrase, coffee to coffee.
Is the ultimate closed loop. Yesterday's coffee becomes today's urine, which becomes tomorrow's water for tomorrow's coffee.
I know there's a big psychological hurdle there, but I read that this water is actually cleaner than what most of us drink down here.
It's purer than most bottled water. The filtration is so rigorous, you cannot risk a stomach bug in space. That's not just an inconvenience, that's a mission-critical failure.
Okay, so we have air spun from water and water spun from waste. But there's another killer up there the source is really focused on, temperature. I think most people just assume space is cold.
That's a huge misconception. Space is a place of extreme thermal violence. When the station is in direct sunlight, the outside skin hits, plus 250 degrees Fahrenheit.
Hotter than boiling water.
And then 45 minutes later, when it passes into Earth's shadow, it plummets to minus 250 degrees. That is a 500-degree swing every 90 minutes.
That is wild. But the sources said for the crew inside, the bigger problem isn't freezing, it's cooking.
Think about it. The station is a giant, super-insulated thermos. Inside, you've got 6 human bodies, all generating heat, plus all the electronics, the laptops, servers, lights.
And on Earth, hot air rises away, convection.
But convection needs gravity. Hot air doesn't rise in space. It just sits there. It creates this stagnant bubble of heat around a piece of equipment until it melts. You can't just open a window.
So you need active cooling, and this is where the ammonia comes in, this part of the design. It really terrified me.
It's a clever 2-loop system. Inside, they use pipes filled with water to absorb heat because water is safe near the crew.
Right. But you can't run water pipes in the outside of the station.
Because at minus 250 degrees, it would freeze solid and burst the pipes instantly. So that internal water loop transfers its heat to a second external loop.
And that one is filled with ammonia.
Nasty stuff. But it doesn't freeze until minus 107 degrees. It's the perfect fluid to carry that heat out to those giant white radiators you see on the outside of the station.
But ammonia is incredibly toxic. Kills on
Yeah.
contact, right? And
Yeah.
we're pumping it all through the station's walls.
It is a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And in 2013, that risk became very, very real. An astronaut looked out the window and saw what they called fireflies drifting away.
Which is such a beautiful image for something so deadly. Those were frozen flakes of toxic ammonia, a leak.
It was a major crisis. Two astronauts, Chris Cassidy and Tom Marshburn, had to do an emergency spacewalk. And this wasn't a normal spacewalk. They had a no-touch rule.
Meaning they had to fix this pump that was spewing poison without getting a single drop on their suits.
Because if they did, and they brought it back into the airlock, when the airlock repressurized, that frozen ammonia would turn back into a gas.
It would gas the entire crew.
Immediately. They were basically diffusing a chemical bomb while floating in a vacuum. It just highlights how fragile everything is.
And we haven't even talked about the bullets yet.
The bullets.
Right. It's like a layered cake with air in it.
Exactly. The outer layer is thin aluminum. When a particle hits it at that speed, it doesn't just punch a hole. The energy is so high it vaporizes the projectile into a spray, a cloud of plasma and dust.
So the first layer sacrifices itself to break up the bullet.
It spreads the energy out, and then inches behind that you have layers of Kevlar and ceramic fabric that catch that spray. It's a bulletproof vest that works by making the bullet explode.
That's brilliant. But you said sometimes they do have to move the whole 410 station. That must use a ton of fuel.
It would. And fuel is just as precious as air and water. So to turn the station without burning fuel, they use something that looks like magic. Control moment gyroscopes.
The CMGs, the spinning wheels.
Yep. Deep inside the station, there are 4 massive, heavy flywheels spinning at over 6,000 RPM.
And just by tilting those wheels, they can turn the entire station.
It's conservation of angular momentum. You know how if you spin a bike wheel really fast and try to tilt it, it pushes back?
Fights you.
That force is torque. They harness that. By mechanically tilting these huge gyros, the force is transferred to the station's frame, and the whole football field-sized structure rotates without using a single drop of propellant.
That is just elegant. It's using physics to get a free ride.
It really is. And when you put all of these systems together, the water, the oxygen, the shielding, the gyros, you realize the ISS isn't just a home. It's a blueprint.
That's what the sources really drive home. This isn't just about hanging out in low Earth orbit. This is practice.
It is the testbed for Mars. A mission to Mars is 2.5 years, round trip. You can't get a resupply water. You can't get a new pump. You have to be 100% self-sufficient.
They're even testing new kinds of habitats up there. I read about the BEAM module, the Bigelow Expandable Activity module.
Which is amazing. It launched all compressed like a folded tent, and then they just inflated it with air to create this rigid new room.
Which solves the launch problem. You can pack a huge house into a small rocket.
Exactly. The bases we build on the Moon or Mars will probably look a lot like BEAM, and they'll run on the life support systems perfected on the ISS.
It's just astonishing to think that this tiny can we've been talking about is the prototype for humanity becoming a multi-planet species.
It is. The ISS proves we can stop being a one-planet species. We've shown we can live in the void. Now we just have to scale it up.
So, next time you're outside at night, look up. If you see a bright dot moving steadily across the sky, not blinking, that's not a plane, that's the $150 billion Lego set.
A Lego set where a handful of people are drinking recycled coffee, breathing spun oxygen, and dodging space bullets, all to pave the way for the rest of us.
And that is a deep dive worth taking. Thanks for listening.
Keep looking up.